Hi there, I'm Peter Millard, and in today's video I'm going to show you how I route finger pulls for wardrobe doors and sliding doors. But before we get into that, I just wanted to update you about last Tuesday's video when I launched the video on demand thing. That video has the honour of both being my least watched and my most disliked video. So given that, you might expect this to have been a bit of a disaster, but in fact it's quite the contrary. I've been on YouTube for 2.5 years now, and the exclusive video, the big shelves video that I'd released on demand last Tuesday, has in the last 2.5 days generated more income for this channel than any other build video in the last 2.5 years. So a worthwhile experiment from my point of view. Now, I did mess up the offer codes initially, and apologies to anyone who hit a snag. This is now sorted, and the offer code earlybird2 number 2 will work in all regions and currencies, and I've extended that offer code to be valid until this Sunday. So if you wanted to grab some quality original content at a discount, then check out the video on demand collection. There's a link down in the video description. Now, interesting times, and I'll discuss this more in a future video, but that's for the future. Let's get on with today's video, routing finger pulls for wardrobe and sliding doors. It's coming up next. So yes, I've got 3 big double wardrobes with top boxes on the go at the moment. They're going to happen in a few weeks' time, but I'm making the doors first because they need to be sent off to be sprayed. I made the double doors yesterday. They're fairly straightforward. You might remember if you've seen the channel before, I made some doors with finger pulls last year, and they were a bit of a nightmare. I've got it cracked now, so I just thought I'd share the technique. The technique actually came from somebody in the comments, one of those old videos, and thank them very much, whatever their name was. Sorry, I've forgotten. I'll flash it up on screen if I can remember. But it's a 2-stage process with these finger pulls, because the cutter that I'm using to make the actual finger pull, to make the actual shape, is called an Ovolo scribe. But I hog out the bulk of the waste material to start with, just with a regular straight bit in a guide bush against a template. And they're fairly straightforward and fairly easy to do, but I've done the wardrobe doors yesterday and I want to get on with doing the top box doors today. It is incredibly dusty and incredibly messy process, so I'm going to get those done quickly today and then get out of here for a few hours to let the dust settle, even with the fans on and the extractors and everything running. It is a filthy job, and I swore I wouldn't do any more, but hey, you know, the opportunity arises, and what can you do? Now, fairly obviously, when you're chewing through some big doors like this, it makes sense to make a test. And I tested the jig and the cutout just as well. I did the test because I managed to make the jig the wrong size, classic. But when the jig back the right size, it worked out just fine. It's a good way of doing this because it lets you determine the actual thickness of the material that's left behind. These are going to have a little squared off corner, so I've got a little bit of careful chisel work to do with those. But the whole idea behind these is that you make a template to do this with, and I've actually got 2 sets of doors. I've got some wardrobe doors and I've got some sliding doors, and this is the sliding door template or jig, and these are just glued together. They're edge glued and just pulled together with tape and then pinned onto a batten, and these work extremely well. This is just regular 10-minute PVA. I don't have any problem. I've never had any problem with this falling apart, because it's not really under any great stress. It is just to guide the bearing on the router bit, or indeed the guide bush, around while you make the cut. And so far, yeah, it's worked really well. Obviously, for the bigger wardrobe doors, the jig was significantly larger. So I've added a couple of braces, top and bottom, just to make sure that this doesn't come under too much pressure, because obviously it's a much bigger template guide than normal. And for these 2, that was for the size of the regular doors. For these 2 top box doors, we're going to go for a slightly smaller size, because obviously the doors are smaller. Having the finger pull that big looks a little bit out of proportion. So what we'll do, we'll just move the jig down a little bit just to get it in the right place. So this is our first pair of top box doors. They're clamped onto the bench. They've got another board under there to keep it absolutely flat. I've marked the height and the width square so that we've got a good guide, because obviously this template was designed for wardrobe doors rather than these doors, so it does overhang here. Just get that in the right place and clamp it down. Alrighty, so as well as being fairly noisy, this is going to be fairly messy. The air scrub is going to be on, I've got my ears on, face mask, all that. I'll keep you out of the way a little bit. And to start with, we'll use the straight bit in the big router just to hog out the bulk of the waste, and then we get the Ovolo scribe bit to do the actual finger pull. Okay, not so bad. Absolutely filthy job, especially on these ones where you've got an outlet for all the dust to come out. It doesn't always capture what you want. But first pass, pretty good. So we'll pop you back over here, and we'll go on to the Ovolo scribe next. Turn off the fan. The air quality is saying it's quite high, not as high as it was. So let's show you. When I was doing the wardrobe doors, it got up to 57,000. So we're at 19,000, which is quite high. So I'm going to go away, brush myself down, go away, let the dust settle a bit, leave the fan on, and come back to you in a minute. So there we are, that's how I do my finger pull cutouts these days. Template or a jig, simply made from 6mm MDF, because that's what I have a lot of lying around, and just glued and taped together, works really well. And then a big straight bit and guide bush just to hog out the bulk of the waste, and then the Ovolo scribe bit just to create the shape. It does create a huge amount of dust, so be sure to be wearing a face mask and have your extraction connected. And that's kind of it really. I've got the rest of these doors to do, the squared off corner in the finger pulls, and I've got to get the hinge cutouts done. And then I won't see these again. These go off to be sprayed, and I'll meet them again on site in a few weeks' time, where I'll be fitting them to the cabinet, to the wardrobe and cabinet carcasses that I've yet to make. So yes, a bit of a rod or a story stick for the hinge positions, I think, for those. Having to make the doors first and then the carcasses. But I'm sure everything will be fine. That, though, is for a future video. Can I remind you that the best way not to miss one of my future videos is to subscribe to the channel. And if you do subscribe, don't forget to hit that bell, then you'll be notified whenever I put up something new. I'd like you to take a minute as well to check out the contents of the video description down below, as there's all kinds of handy dandy little bits and pieces in there, including the stuff I use in this video, as well as links to support the channel through Patreon or PayPal. And I want to take a minute just to say thank you very much indeed to everybody who does just that, either through the Patreon process or through one-off or recurring donations. You're literally helping me to keep the lights on here. As I mentioned in the video, I think I post on Instagram most days, so try giving me a follow there as well. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.